we have the next block of founder stories beginning. The first person up on the stage is one of those guys who I really admire, because he was only 17 when he came to the first Garage 48 hackathon. He was still a high school student. And I think he's only 24 now, 23 now, and he has an amazing company which is global. Give a big applause to Markus Villig.
Nice.
Thanks, man.
Okay, hello, great to be here. Thanks for the warm introduction. I'm Markus Villig, founder of Taxify, and today for the next 10 minutes I'll be sharing 5 quick tips that I've picked up over the last 3.5 years. And many of you might be entrepreneurs, so hopefully this is something useful. Let's see. So starting off controversially as usual. So a whole block of ideas I'm going to be sharing is that you shouldn't usually follow best practices, or at least usually you should just really think with your own head. What has actually really happened to us is that we're getting constantly advice over the 3 years of what good startups should be doing. And usually we're doing completely the opposite, and that's why we're here. So I'll be going into a bit more detail of what I mean by this. First thing, so with every company, you constantly have these new ideas that are coming up. You see that some segments of your clients are starting to really grow fast, and you constantly need to decide, where am I going to focus our resource of time and money? Are you going to invest it in the product that's currently working well and in those customers, or rather you're going to be investing in this new segment and this new product that you see is picking up fast? And then being honest, I mean, this is a skill that's really, really hard to learn. And as a founder, you just need to have like this intrinsic understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve. And this is actually make it or break it. You constantly, every week, more or less, you need to be deciding, am I going to commit to this new thing, or am I going to commit to the thing we have? And bringing an example from Taxify, then in 2015, 99% of our business in the first 2 years was just licensed old school taxi drivers. But we saw that more and more the regulation barriers were going away, and we understood that actually private drivers and allowing anybody to drive is going to be the future. So for months and months we were thinking, what do we do? Are we going to be changing the product? Are we going to be completely changing our image? We were discussing this with our shareholders, investors, our clients, our team, and actually most of them were quite much against it. They were saying that, okay, this private driver market is amazing, but you know, there's the world's biggest private companies already in that field, and maybe you shouldn't do it, and you should stick to what you already have. But that's one of those moments when, as a founder, you just really need to understand your market well, understand the strategy, and just commit to it. And now, looking actually 2 years after it, 99% of our business is soon going to be private drivers, and taxis are basically history, and nobody even remembers it. So for every company, you always have these phases, and that's something where point is, don't really listen to what other people are saying. It's good to get their ideas, but at the end of the day, you should just really make the decisions yourself. So as usual, think with your own head, apply common sense. Otherwise, you can be part of a team, but you can't be leading the team. Talking about the next quick tip that we've picked up. Most of the startups are getting advice that you should go into these big established markets. Most commonly, they're saying go to UK, go to US. That's where all the money is, that's where all the clients are. In our case, we actually were thinking to do the same thing. For the first 2 years, we're trying to find ways how to get into the US market. We sent salespeople there. We wasted a ton of money, ton of effort. And because everybody was telling us that, hey, this is what you should be doing. In reality, at some point, we understood that, hey, only 5% of the world's population is actually living in US. And there's 2 billion people that are living in Europe and Africa. So maybe let's try to do something there. So again, common piece of advice for startups, really think where is the problem that you're solving the biggest. And don't just blindly follow advice that, hey, everybody else is going there, go there. Oftentimes what happens is that these markets are the most competitive, and actually the markets where nobody's looking at have the biggest potential and the easiest way to grow. So for us, this has really proven to be the case, and we're having no plans to go to US probably ever. I think this is probably the second most important idea we have in this presentation. And that is that most startups pick a problem that they want to solve, they pick a market, and then they're trying to iterate with a solution until they actually find product market fit. So this is what we did in Europe. We started here with an idea of making it really easy for people to move around. So you tap a button, you get the car, and eventually everybody would be using it instead of their own cars or public transport. Problem was that in Europe, this is really, really hard to do because everybody already has cars. Public transport is really good. It's really, really hard to convince people to switch to something new. On the driver's side, the problem is even bigger. Unemployment is low, people are making, on average, really good salaries. They don't want to drive and earn extra money. And there's very few people who do. And the part of them just do it for fun, not even because of the money, with brand new cars. So at the end of the day, our value prop for both of the sides was like really medium at best. And that's what we were trying to iterate for the first 2 years. How do we actually crack this? How do we get really big? The business was growing okay, but it wasn't really something that would be super amazing and motivating for everybody. And then we started to think that, okay, like maybe we just should apply exactly the same product we have to some other markets. Maybe we shouldn't be stuck in Europe and just iterate here, but instead of changing the product, let's keep the product the same and just apply it to a completely different market. And then we started to look that, hey, actually, there's this big continent, Africa, where public transport is really bad, nobody has cars, and unemployment is really high. And suddenly you could just bring the two halves together, customers are happy, drivers are happy, and now just 12 months later, most of our business is actually in Africa and growing the biggest there. So I think that's a big learning that most startups are doing a bit wrong. That they are so focused on one geographic area that they're just trying to iterate the product, and many of them never get anywhere. But if you actually think broader, your product might be applying really well in a completely different geography that you just haven't thought about. Now, getting to the most important part of this presentation, and I think something that in 5 years most startups will be doing, but today, as far as we know, we're literally the only company in the world. What is this? This is correct. It's a honey badger. So why do I have a photo of a honey badger here? Thing is that honey badgers are pretty funny animals. They're not the biggest in deserts or jungles, but everybody's afraid of them, even big lions. And why? Because these guys are really fierce, and they don't give a fuck. So that's exactly what's really becoming a part of culture at Taxify as well. We just see that, okay, something needs to get done. There's rules. There's some people who are saying it shouldn't be done or it can't be done. But we see that it's actually the best thing for everybody, so we just fucking do it. Getting into detail what I mean by this. So I think every startup has been getting the same constant lessons. You want to expand? This is how you do it. You send people there, research the market, you get to know the local problem, set up a company, then you hire the best people. All of this takes months and months and months. Eventually you have a team, you start to actually build a business. 80% of time it flops. And then the scaling is really hard and takes a lot of time and money. So we were doing the same thing for the first 2 years. We were doing it in a ton of markets. And then at some point we were like, okay, we understand that the biggest potential is actually in Africa. But problem is we didn't really have any money. I'm literally talking, we had money in like maybe tens of thousands of euros, which in a scale of our industry where everybody's raising billions is close to nothing. So we're like, okay, how do we actually test this out? How do we test the idea that maybe Africa is gonna be the best market? And we figured, okay, but let's just hire people remotely over Skype. It doesn't cost us anything, and let's see what happens. So literally what we do, we put up a job ad online, we advertise it, a lot of people apply, then we do test assignments with them online, we interview them online, and then guess what, we actually hire them as well. And then they start working. And then turns out it actually works really well. So now 1 year later, we have 50% of our company's employees already in Africa, and actually most of the businesses in Africa. And guess what? Nobody from HQ has even gone to most of these markets, ever. So, I mean, bring in a good example from South Africa. So finally, after 8 months of operations, we decided we're gonna go there when we had an office of 20 people. And then literally 4 guys from HQ show up like, hey, what's up? You've been working with us for 8 months, how's it going? And they were super excited, we were super excited, but at the end of the day, it didn't change anything. You don't need to physically go to these markets. It just matters that you find good people, and you actually just explain really well what they're supposed to do. And that's it. Like, you don't really need to waste time going to these markets, putting in a lot of effort, and then seeing if something happens. But rather, you start small, you see what happens. If it goes well, then you start to invest more, and then you go there. So now actually our top 2 and top 3 markets are Nigeria and Kenya. We've never been there. Nobody from HQ. Like, nobody. And we have over 10 people team soon. So I think that this is something that I haven't at least heard that any company in Europe would have very successfully expanded into Africa, besides Rocket Internet. And even what they do is that they invest millions and they send a lot of people from Europe to set it up. So I think this is something that in 5 years most people and companies will realize. That actually nowadays, if your product is good enough, and actually you have an internet connection, and you know how to do video calls, you never need to go into these markets, like, ever. So, I mean, really, like, most companies are wasting so much time and money and doing it so wrong and backwards. So, but of course, I'm gonna say there are products which you cannot do like this, but there are many products which you can. And if you really think about it, there's a lot more companies which could do it like this. Lastly, on culture. So this is really something where I think most experienced startup founders are telling you that culture is really the main thing that matters. And when I started, and for the first 3 years, I was thinking that, like, why does it matter? Just get stuff done, and who cares about this culture? And then about 6 months ago, I started to realize that actually getting stuff done, that is a part of our culture. So we really have this culture that you just have to get stuff done. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what time you work. It doesn't matter what's your background. Are you 16 or are you 30 or are you 40 or do you have 10 years of experience or you're just from high school like me? So at the end of the day, what really matters is that you deliver. And this is really like this core part of our culture that actually I'm starting to realize that, hey, it's not such a bad value, that we actually give people chances, and then anybody really has a chance to just come in and do their best work. And then there's no bias about your background whatsoever. So more and more, like, I'm starting to realize that culture is important, but this is something that is very hard to design. At the end of the day, as a founder, you are basically the main thing that just determines the culture. Because you will be choosing which employees come to the team. You will be really determining how they act based on how you act yourself. And you might think that, okay, we want to have these elements in the culture, but if you don't really care about it and keep it up every day, it's not going to happen. So what we realized over 3 years is that actually, since just intrinsically the founders are exactly like this. We don't care about people's background. We give everybody a chance. We just really want to see that people deliver and get their stuff done, and nothing else really matters. Then this is something that is now going across all the 140 employees we have in 18 different offices, that many of them haven't even met, but they just see that this is how we communicate and how we are, and it's spreading very fast. Yeah, just on the previous note, some photos from Africa, and then tying into the culture as well. Like, one of the main values we have in the company is being super frugal and very efficient. So, for example, if you look at the image on the top right, that's the first office we had in Cape Town. And it looks like completely like a bomb hole, but nobody really cares because it gets the job done. And again, you don't need to have a fancy office if you go to a new country. You can get by with something really, really frugal, and once the business actually develops well, then you can start investing money there. And this is something that's actually motivating for the local team. They can start in something really crappy, and then as the business develops, they also see that their environment develops. Oftentimes what companies do is that you get a really expensive, cool office while you actually don't have any business. And this is like actually leaving quite a different motivational scheme for the local employees as well. What else? Quick overview of where we are. So today, actually in Africa and Europe, we're the fastest growing ride-sharing app, adding hundreds of thousands of clients every month. Today we now have 140 people on the team, offices in 18 countries. Many of those we have actually never been to. By the way, we're hiring 100 people this year as well. So if you're interested to get shit done, then you can come to us. So yeah, I hope it was a bit interesting. And lastly, we're still just getting started. So as you know, urban transport today is made up of 3 main components, and ride-hailing is just 2% of it. So in the next 10 years, we're going to be making sure that this gets from 20 to at least, from 2% to at least 20. And that's going to be amazing. So yeah, thanks for listening.
For you. If the audience has any questions for Markus. I have a question. So we've been talking about on this stage a lot about this kind of Estonian pay it forward attitude and the, the young ones, and that everybody has gone through this stage, and then the young ones kind of start mentoring themselves, and I'm sure that you have done this, but is there, who are the kind of the key ones that mentored you, and then are you paying it forward to someone else?
Yeah, I think in our experience, I was lucky that when I was starting, I was just 19 years old. I didn't have any experience. But my brother already had over 10 years of experience in business. And since he's co-founder of the company, I learned a lot from him. But other than that, a lot of help from all the early investors we have. So really, Estonian startup scene, the early phase is really good. There's a lot of people who built some great companies. So you should listen to them, but you shouldn't always do what they say.
Good advice. Are you paying it forward now? Are you already in that stage that you can mentor?
Yeah, funny thing is, I think that since I'm relatively young compared to most Estonian founders, over the last 3 years, I think almost every week some new startup is reaching out like, hey, can you give us some advice? So yeah, I really recommend it. Keeps you fresh as well.
Nice. Thank you very much for the talk.
Thank you.
Let's give a big hand to Markus from Taxify. Next up, I'm going to invite on the stage Nick. Nick is here from Moscow, from Parallel. It's actually not his first time on the stage, it's actually third time already, yeah?
Yeah.
On the Latitude
Hello,
stage and talking here. So thank you for sharing your story. The stage is yours.
Yeah. Hello, I'm N.Dobrovolsky. I'm co-founder and vice president of Parallels. And our most known product is Parallels Desktop. Who of you have a Mac computer here? Anybody knows what Parallels Desktop is? Great, thank you. Hope some of you are users of our product. So Parallels Desktop allows to run Windows on Macs, and this is what we are most known for. And by the way, right now we are available in all Apple stores worldwide, and there are only 2 titles still in Apple stores. This is Microsoft Office and Parallels Desktop. And today I would like to go through a few tips through how to build a company with some stories from our experience. But what I would like to start with is that we achieved a worldwide known product, and that led to my own personal experience of a half-an-hour meeting personally with Steve Jobs, which was back in 2007, and it was once-in-a-lifetime experience. So if you try hard, you can achieve everything what you wish. So from our third success consists of 3 parts. The most part is vision, then you need to have a team and you need to focus. So let's look at them. So vision, you need to understand what you are doing. So ideally you find something, some problem that everybody has, like for example, everybody wants to ride, like was from Taxify, Markus. Or everybody with a Mac computer back 10 years ago, they needed to run Windows application, and they still need because we have more and more customers. And so our initial thought was that we want to run different computers inside one computer, different virtual computers, but then it transformed a bit that we actually want to hide Windows from users because users need Windows applications. They don't need Windows itself. And so our vision a bit changed, but it still persists that we want to solve the problem for customers. So the problem is to run Windows and Windows applications on the Mac, in our case. So it still is sort of the stamina of our business. Then obviously you need to find a good team because no man is an island. So if you are the only one, it's quite unlikely that you will do something successful, and you always need your core mates that do things with you. So in terms of our company, for example, everybody from the initial team, there were about 15 of us, are still with the company. So nearly 20 years we are working together. And with the initial guys, we work for more than 20 years, so since 1995. But this is even before we started working on especially this product and this business. And of course, you need to focus. So right now, I see lots of startups that have a great idea, start doing something, then they don't have results in a couple of months or even a year. Then they think, oh, this is bad, this is not working. Let's switch to something another. So and this is definitely a bad thing because you switch, and finally you spend many years but achieve nothing. In our case, it was we initially worked on the product for 6 years, since 2000 to 2006, before we found our niche and Apple introduced Switch to Intel Macs, and we became famous in one day, literally. So everybody was wanting to run Windows on Macs once they became effectively PCs in a nice box. And after that, Apple released Bootcamp, which is the program that allows to install Windows, but you need to switch between two systems and to reboot that and that in order to run on one of those. So in the next day after that Bootcamp, we released our Parallels desktop in beta, and it sort of exploded that some unknown Parallels company outplayed Apple on their own field because we allowed to run both Windows and Mac at the same time together. And another thing about focusing is there is a big giant company in virtualization, VMware. Who knows VMware name? Great, thank you, even more people. So they tried to push us out of this market. We were the first, and for a year and a half, we were the only solution on Mac to run Windows on a Mac. So they tried to push us out. They released their product called Fusion, and they switched on their strong marketing machine, putting lots of millions of dollars into that machine. And in about 2 years, they took half of our market. So, and we were 50-50, and they were very strongly hurting us. But we still continued focusing. We always innovated. We understood that customers need better integration and better work of Windows applications on Mac. And so this is what we always delivered. So year over year, we were innovating. They were catching up. So they were copying our features, like Samsung with Apple, for example. this was the same in Apple area with VMware, but they were copying us. And finally, this played well for us, because 2 years ago, they quit that market completely. They even fired everybody who worked in that area on that product and transferred the maintenance of the product to some Chinese team. So if you really focus and really continue doing, then you become successful, and then you win against even a bigger player, much bigger player. The next thing is that we went at the very beginning, not at the very beginning, in the middle, we went through a tough time. So around 2004, we were in a quite bad financial situation, even to the extent that for a couple of months, none of us were getting salary. Some had families, so it was a tough period. And so we started looking for investor. But what is shown here is that I see now that lots of guys think that I have a great idea and even I have a team, but I shouldn't show this idea to anybody, because they will steal it and implement it, and I will lose everything and they will make money. So it's not a problem with current investors, because investors, they all are looking for both idea and the team who can implement. They're not going to steal your idea. And also, what you can see here, idea itself is only 1% of everything. Then you need to work hard through many months, maybe even years, in order to deliver a good product and build a great company. So don't worry, and don't be afraid to show your idea to people who want to invest and help you. And in addition to money, investors, they always help with their relationships and with their knowledge. For example, in our case, we were acquired in 2004, everything, our product, our team, and everything, that we became a part of a bigger software group. The first thing after the deal was closed, the first thing after that, they came to us and told, okay, guys, you have a great technology and a great prototype, but now let's throw everything away and build it from scratch. So we literally re-engineered our product from scratch right after doing this deal, because it was a real way to the future to expand our product. And then after you achieve some success, definitely don't relax. As you can see, lots of things, lots of companies here that were like huge and very well-known. Some of them were even monopolies, and now they are sort of nowhere, and nobody knows about those. We remember about them, but we don't use them anymore and see them anymore. So definitely you need to diversify. In our case, for the past like 7 years, we are developing our areas. So we have we also went into remote access area, where we developed a product with good mobile access to desktop applications, then brought it into server area by acquiring a company, which resulted in Parallels Remote Application Server. And right now we are continuing delivering new products with Parallels Toolbox, which is for Mac and soon will be for Windows, that allows to do simple things on your computers, like record video, download video from YouTube, record audio, make screenshots, etc., etc. Lots of things. So we are trying to innovate and diversify in order to not put all eggs into one basket. So to reiterate, you need a vision, you need a good team, you should focus, and then you will build a great product, and you will win against your competition. if you want to speed up, you can easily get some investment money right now, and don't be afraid of it. But choose smartly, let's say. So about investors, that first you need to understand what they are proposing and read the terms carefully, because everything is great before you start making some money, especially if you start making good money. Because this is when typically, usually founders and investors, their interests go in different ways, and this is when you will have some tough time discussing and talking about your future, deciding about your future. And definitely don't relax once you are successful. Diversify. And so to summarize, just do work on your business and you will definitely be successful. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I will be glad to answer.
Do we have a question from the audience?
Thank you for the speech, Nick. I have this question. What is your why? Why do you wake up every day and get to work?
Actually, in reality, this is also relates to team. My passion is that I can in the business I can do different things, and I did different things. So right now we have six different products, and I quite deeply involved in all of them. And this is very important when you retain people. So I have one guy who came to me with a leave notice 3 times. And I managed to retain him in order just switching to a completely different area. And this is very important because anything, a human being becomes used to anything that you do every day or periodically, right? So do change quite often, change your area, and then it will be very interesting.
Let's take one more question from the audience. Anybody? If not, then thank you very much, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
And
There's something a little
thank you
to
very
remember.
much. And actually, before I thought that for the questions, I will present a copy of our products. So thank you very much.
Nice. Ask questions, you get shit. Stuff, sorry. The next person on the stage started her first business when she was 18 with just $200 and manages today 2 companies, not 1. Zara, please come on the stage.
Thank you. Hi, very cool being here. This is super loud. Is it supposed to be? Okay. So I want to share kind of more of a personal story today and maybe a few things which I believe helped me be here today, manage 2 businesses remotely mainly and travel around the world. So my journey starts from Azerbaijan in 1992, where it just became an independent republic and finished the war where thousands died and went to the Cold War, which still continues until today. It's a small, beautiful country right in the middle between Europe and Asia. And on the outside, it's trying to blend in with the Western society. But on the inside, it still has a lot of conservative beliefs where often your family decides for you everything starting from career choice, ending with whom you will marry and when. So coming from this culture and seeing how many women are staying in unhappy, unfaithful, and violent marriages for a number of reasons, but one of the main ones being financial dependence, I was afraid to end up like one of them. So at 18 years old, I decided to start my own business. I had just $200, and which I gathered from high school times, you know, just by putting a few cents aside every time mom would give some money for food. And we started just as a Facebook page, and then we were sitting in a coffee shop. Our office was in a coffee shop. We would order one tea and sit there for a whole day. And when the waiter would come and ask, like, would you like to order something else? We're like, no, we're good. And this continued for quite some time. And today, Alza has grew from a Facebook page and $200 to $500,000 and boutiques of evening and wedding dresses. We have rent and sale, and each standing 2 stories tall in the center of the capital city, Baku. And all of this is being managed by a few young girls, oldest of them being myself. I'm 24 right now. And this has been a challenge not only for me personally, but also for the whole society around, to accept that you can do things even if you don't have money, exposure, support, or backing from powerful people in our case. And a big reason they were saying that you can't do that because you're a girl. They just wouldn't take me seriously in the beginning. Every time someone would enter the shop and ask for the owner, they would just refuse talking to me, asking for a man. Call your father, they were saying. I cannot discuss business matters with a little girl. So at 19, my mom lost suddenly her job, and in a matter of a week, I became responsible for my mom, my diabetic grandmother, my younger sister who was still at high school, a mortgage, a car credit, a cat. And at the same time, I was responsible for 15 families. 15 young women who were working in Alza and who were all primary breadwinners in their families. And that's when crisis hit, and basically over 2 nights we had 120% devaluation of our currency, which meant that over 2 nights my costs doubled, people's ability to buy fell. Big companies started huge layoffs, and shops around us were closing. And I knew that laying off someone would not be just laying off someone, that would actually mean a starving family. So that responsibility was quite challenging, and this whole journey was quite lonely as well, because back home we didn't really have the ecosystems, the mentors, the support. All right, my mentors were the TED and YouTube, with listening just to hours of interviews of successful business owners. So I wanted to create a space and tools for other girls to be able to pass through these stages easier, so that they could have support. So 2 years ago, I started WoWoman, which is a global woman empowerment movement. It's a place where they can dream, dare, grow, connect, and inspire each other. In 2 years, we managed to organize over 110 events, 19 programs, 3-month-long programs on coding, entrepreneurship, 21st century skills. We are organizing meetings with psychologists for them and so on, and 6,500 women actually already passed through all of this, and we expanded to Kyrgyzstan and Pakistan, and now moving further. And it's being managed by 53 girls right now. Yeah, this is a photo from our 2nd anniversary. Yeah. So I want to share kind of what I believe helped me get here today was first launching early and adapting fast. Just for example, with WoWoman, I was thinking a lot what kind of business model to make, what exactly it should look like. There are so many women empowerment organizations and businesses and so on. So at one point I was like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to do one event and then see what happens. And then this 6,500 girls happened, right, which already went through the thing. Because I don't have any investors or any other stakeholders, I can make decisions fast and change and adapt fast. So that was also a huge thing. We kept on listening and still are listening to our customers and basically adapting to their needs and what they want all the time. For example, in Alza, we have over 250,000 followers on Instagram, and still until now we are just listening to what they're asking, what they're saying, and just keep on adapting and experimenting and testing. So I think this launching early, changing and testing, not being afraid to experiment, helped us a lot. The second thing is both of the businesses were completely bootstrapped. And I spent last few months in the Silicon Valley where I met a lot of people who are full-time raising investments. And yes, of course, there are so many ideas, startups, where it's just not possible to launch without an investment. But there are also a lot which actually can, but somehow we are just stuck with this template. First I need to go get money, and then I'm going to do all the rest. So to be honest, for me, bootstrapping and being able to have this freedom to travel around the world, not to report to anyone, is a huge responsibility, because basically you are responsible for everything, but at the same time, this freedom is priceless. So just maybe you could pause and see what there are a number of different financing options, and you don't always have to go the traditional way. Maybe something like this would work out for you as well. The third thing is investing and trusting the teams. I think, like, currently for the last 2 years, I'm literally just traveling all around the place while my teams are, for example, organizing 5 events in 5 cities at the same time. I think investing early on in their education, not only investing not money-wise, investing like personally actually sitting down and growing together with them helped build the culture of trust. They are taking all these organizations as their family and as their own thing as well. They feel the responsibility for it. And the hardest thing was actually to trust them. Like, okay, you invested, you taught them, and then just get out of the way and let them do the work. It was hard to just let go, to let them fail, but only that way they actually managed to grow and learn, and now are doing, I can proudly say they're doing a great job while I am in completely different parts of the world. Okay. Not accepting no for an answer was a huge thing for me as well. When starting up Alza, on the borders, we had the monopolist who were saying that you cannot bring in wedding dresses because that's my business. And he was telling, come on, girl, go play somewhere else. What can you and your 40 kilos of weight do here? Didn't accept that, was tough, moved on, and that's why Alza exists today. When starting up WoWoman, I applied for 3 grants. All of them said no. Again, I said, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to still make it happen. We did make it happen, and now they actually approached us proposing money, and we were, to one of them we said no, and another ones we accepted. But in the beginning, they didn't want to support us at all. So do not accept no for the answer. And last but not least, I think one of the hardest things was being responsible for more than a dozen families when you're in your early 20s is hard. It's a lot of responsibility, it's a lot of pressure, but, and I did burn out. I burned out physically, emotionally, and I promised myself not to work 16 hours a day anymore. I realized that no matter how much I want to give, how much care I want to care for others, help others, contribute to this world, if I'm not gonna take care of myself, it's just not sustainable. It's just a straight road to the burnout. So just as in the airplane, first you put the mask on yourself, and only then you put it on your neighbor. So maybe if some of you heard Ragnar's story yesterday, how he was talking about crazy statistics about depression that founders have. It's true. So I think my main lesson for me personally, that's something I didn't do, and now I'm trying to kind of spread this around, is that first you need to love and care for yourself, and only then you can give much more to the world, especially all those who are driven by missions, visions, products. You want to make this world a better place. I believe that you cannot do that until you first take care of yourself. So, yeah, thank you very much, and you can always find me on my personal Facebook or Instagram and email.
Do we have a question for Zara from the audience, maybe? No questions. But thank you very much for the interesting talk. There's a little something for you as well from Latitude 59. Thank you for taking the stage.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up, I want to invite here Fred. Join me on the stage already. He's a founder of Scoro, and he's going to talk about his personal story today. Something that you might not know about him is that he actually comes from the music industry and the entertaining industry. So he promised that you're at least going to laugh once. So let's see. All right, Fred, come on stage.
Can you hear me? Hi, I'm Fred. I'm the CEO and founder of Scoro, which is a business management solution to manage your time, sales, and finances all in one place. But I'm not going to start with software. I'm going to start with something much more interesting. Parties. So the first laugh was there, so I did what I promised. Thanks. Didn't sound fake at all. So the first event, okay, so we're going back just a few years. I was about 19. And me and my friend, we thought we were just two 19-year-old guys, so we thought, how can we combine business with pleasure? Obvious choice was we're going to organize an event in a nightclub. So the first event we did, it was packed. It was like 2,700 people. It was the all-time record of any nightclub in Tallinn. Of course, most of the money went to the club owner, but we still made enough money so that I could buy my first car. And by the way, the car had an electric back seat. I've never seen it after that. So we thought, we're gonna replicate this success. And so we're gonna replicate this success, right? And let's organize another event. So of course it's gonna be packed again. But this time, the club looked more like this. So I had to sell my car with the electric back seat. But I mean, we didn't get discouraged anyway, because we thought this was just bad luck, so we have to scale it up. And because summer was coming, we thought we have to move to the beach, and we really have to scale it up. So we looked at statistics, research, and it said an average summer in Estonia, it sounds unbelievable as I'm saying it, but it has 35 days of sunshine. So yeah, we did the math. We thought we're gonna sell drinks, food, organize parties, sell tickets, and so basically we're gonna make tons of money, right? And then June started, and the whole June actually looked like this. So there were these random dog walkers. We sold 2-3 cups of coffee a day. Most of the time we were just playing beach soccer with friends. And actually, the whole June looked exactly like this. It was like 8 degrees or 12 or something. And then 1st of July came, and it was perfect. So it was like pure sunshine, thousands of people on the beach. And we sold drinks, we sold beer, coffee, food. We organized a party. It was packed. So on that day, the revenue was actually much higher than we had projected. So multiply this by 35. It's unbelievable. But eventually, it was actually the worst summer of all time. So this one day was the first and the last. And the rest of the summer looked exactly like this. So the two lessons I learned were, first, never rely on statistics or research alone, because, I mean, it can really mislead you. And the other thing is, when you're looking at product market fit, in this case, both the product and the market was influenced by something we couldn't control, which was the weather, right? And actually, it was so bad that the partner, my childhood friend, who we started this with, he actually became a drug addict. And he actually was put in a mental hospital. And that's not a joke, by the way. So what I did was I had to pay back all the debt, right? So I got an actual job as a web designer, then worked my way up a little, became an IT manager of a radio media group. So I paid back the debts and started again from scratch. And because my favorite hobby has always been music, I actually founded a recording studio and a record label. And it's still going strong. I'm not actively involved in it anymore. But when I was building this, I realized that I've never had problems with discipline or motivation. So I guess if you have problems with one of the two, you're not the founder type. And the only way to get successful is to get really lucky. So, but the fact that I was highly motivated, it caused another set of problems. So I was doing crazy hours, like 16, 17-hour days, 7 days a week. So the stress was so bad that actually I lost a massive amount of weight, and actually, so my legs hurt from hips to toes, basically. The stress was that bad. And I thought there really has to be a better way, right? And it's not Scoro yet, but it's actually, so basically, just to describe how I felt before we get to the solution, or like the sort of the lifeline I found. You can put it, so what I felt like was like a mosquito on a beach of nudists, if you know the expression. So you see so much skin, you don't know where to stick the needle. So basically, the work and the task seemed like there was so much to do all the time, so I felt I'm going crazy. And the other thing, you can compare the situation to is when you look at dogs. So what's interesting about dogs is they spend their whole life in a reactive mode. What it means is that you throw a bone, they run, you throw a frisbee, they jump. They don't have any plan, right? And most of the people are actually exactly like this. It's funny how people are taught different skills, but not one of the most important skills, which is prioritization, time management, etc. So people get a notification, you react. Someone else's priorities become your priorities. So my lifeline, what I discovered was time management. So I'm a big fan of it. I could talk about this for hours, but as I just have 10 minutes here, I'm going to bring out two of the most important things that literally changed my life. So when you look at how people prioritize things, you discover that when everything is ASAP, then nothing actually is. So instead of doing 8-hour work days, we use these 3-minute attention spans. So we're constantly interrupted. And it's like, so the goal is to cancel all interruptions, which is a really easy thing to say. But if you look at tech companies building new tools, addictive products that cause new interruptions by the day, and the features are more about like how to snooze something or how to remind me later about something, then it doesn't actually help. So, and the other thing is, if we really want to be successful and if we really want to get somewhere, we constantly need to know everything we need and want to do. Because otherwise we're only working on urgent stuff that is not important in the long run. And it's amazing how few people actually use a task list. most people use their email inbox as a task list. So I realized that the problem is so widespread, I'm definitely not alone in this. And these problems and principles inspired us to working on a task management app that later grew into what Scoro is today. So what we believe is that it takes too many applications and spreadsheets to get your work done. So Scoro solves that problem by providing the structure so that you could work smarter, not harder. And it allows you to manage your sales, finances, and time from reporting or from planning to reporting in one place. So our customers can be more proactive. Today, we're 50 people in 3 countries. We've signed up more than 10,000 paying users. And we actually bootstrapped until last August when we raised our first round. It's public information. It was 1.7 million euros. And we keep growing at a really fast pace. And from the start, we've been focusing on really tracking everything. So keeping an eye on all the KPIs. And we see that now, when we're in the rapid growth stage, it really pays off. Because there's no magic wand. We need to constantly improve everything. And it's weird when you look at how precisely companies know how to spend their money. They know how much they spend on coffee. So, because accounting has always, been there. But the weird part about it is that a lot of companies are really shallow about how they spend their time, when time actually is the only thing you sort of can't buy. And usually the time you put in is directly correlated to the money you make, especially when you're in the service sector. So, and of course, to measure the things, what's the best solution? Obviously, Scoro. I know that there are a lot of early-stage startups here, so as a final note, I would say don't feel discouraged if you don't achieve any significant results or success in the first year. It usually takes at least 5 years to build a meaningful business. And of course, if you sort of are too conservative, it feels like you don't have enough ambition. So in that sense, you have to balance between being really ambitious and being realistic, so you're not running out of money. Thank you. Good luck. By the way, we have a really cool blog. Carola, Merili, Kristina, our marketing team is here. If you want to read about productivity, exciting topics, feel free to go there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the audience? Can I try to throw this, please? Do you have questions from the audience? Somebody please have a fucking question now. Yes? Yes. Oh. Fucking awesome. I love this thing.
Yeah, it's really fun to throw around. I'm a personal, I have this problem. I'm a horrible time planner. And you say that you're really good at planning your time.
I didn't say that.
Are you sure?
I tried to be.
I kind of understood that. You said you're very motivated, and that you don't have problems with kind of like prioritizing your time and stuff. This is not really much of a question about your company, but how do you do that? How do you get to the area where you know what you want to do, and then you just really go for it?
The thing is, I'm not that good at it, actually. I'm getting better by the day. So that's the thing. Once you realize that it's a problem, you can start working on it. But the weird thing is that most people don't even consider this as a problem.
Anyone else for a question?
Questions? Yes?
Nice. So, thank you for your presentation. The question is really easy. So how do you prioritize?
Okay. That's a really tough question. To prioritize your own time is quite easy. So the first thing you have to do is just basically write down everything you need to do. But the challenge is, if you have a team of 50 people, how do you align these priorities? And for this, you have to have a really good system, such as Scoro.
Selling all the time. Anybody more questions?
I have a question, actually.
You have a question?
Yes.
So Fred was saying to us off stage that we're talking about the music business and that you've actually been to the Eurovision contest as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, as a songwriter and a producer, yes.
So what would you say is the difference between these two stages?
Well, I've never been on the stage of Eurovision. I've been behind the stage and in front of it, but...
Oh,
well, it's our dream to be on the Eurovision.
Oh, really?
Yes,
stage.
Let's try it out. How would it be? Like,
Okay,
let's stand here.
Shall we stand?
Let's do, stand next to me.
So who's the main artist? You?
I'm the main
okay,
artist.
You're in the center.
Yes. You both look at me, like, yes,
Okay.
no.
Is there a dance routine?
No, wait, it goes like this. Where is Verona?
It didn't work?
Did it
That's
work?
the Eurovision stage.
Was that?
Would you fund that artist? I wouldn't.
Well,
we need to rehearse it more.
We have to rehearse.
Our dream came true at least. We've been on the Eurovision stage.
I think
We have to
Eurovision
start
sucks,
somewhere.
actually. There's nothing special, really.
You have to start somewhere, so I think it's a good start.
Let's start at Latitude 39. Next year, Eurovision Song Contest. Awesome. Hey,
Fred, are you going to write us a song for the next Eurovision?
Sure, definitely.
we will learn singing with you. We will learn singing.
Definitely.
Fred will write us a- Hey, thank you very much.
very
Give her a big
Thank you.
applause.
Thank you.
Something to remind you.
Thank you.